The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Yeah, I just gave you presenter. I can see your screen. So, yep. I'm looking at your desktop. Let's see. Has
Can you hear us right now?
okay. Oh, now I see the room. Okay.
Can you hear us?
I can hear everyone fine. I can see you all now. Or now I can.
All right, so where's the remote? Are you going to do the microphones?
I think you're already muted.
How do we want to show the room here? Do we want to?
Just 1, 2, 3. Jackie, can you hear us?
Muted. Hello, can you hear us?
I'm testing, checking.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Okay. All right. Benoit, I have you unmuted. Beth, you are muted on your end, so you have to check your setting.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you
They
guys
can
fine.
hear.
I can see and hear you fine.
You might have to use the regular mic.
Jackie, be aware that Benoit is the host for this room, so when you think host, think Benoit. All right.
Yeah.
It's whatever
Yeah.
if that can pick us up.
Yeah, as long as you stay muted on your machine, should be fine. This will get everybody.
So if we talk from here, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine.
No, I'm just making sure that.
Most of the room. Yeah.
1 is you, is this camera.
Okay.
Click 3, and gets the audience.
Flip a note. Flip a note.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We do have a couple minutes we're going to try to kill as the rest of the webinar people get logged on. But I thought I would take a couple minutes to say a few things. The presentation you're going to see today is put on by the history team. and I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what we do and why we're doing this. I started on the New River Tunnel project with a similar, started out as a display and evolved into a bigger project. And as you know, that tunnel project is now well underway. And from just a year or two ago, it's not the same place it was. And certainly doing research, find out that was originally a bridge back in the day. And, you know, those days are gone as well. The only way to see that now is in photographs. So preserving our history for future Floridians is important. And what we do, let me backtrack. The TED Talks that we're doing right now, we're kind of an offshoot out of that. We found this to be a great learning tool for the next generation of engineers to be able to find out what kind of problems and challenges arose in a particular project and how we got around them. But our main focus was, again, the history perspective. And basically what we do is we gather and identify a bridge or a road of historical significance that's about to get a redo, a remake, facelift, whatnot, and begin our research. We compile from the city, the county, the state, wherever can be, documentation, video, pictures, historical items for the display. And then we come forward and we try to document that facility as is. I don't know if anyone's really thought about it, but the bridge that exists there now, in just a few short years, will exist no more. There will be a replacement, obviously, but now's the time to document that as well. And once the displays come down and everything's done and we've moved on, we try to digitize everything that's been involved, everything that's been collected, and that gets donated and submitted to the state of Florida Library Archive System. So it's available again for future Floridians and future researchers, and it's there preserved. So that's kind of our focus on what we've done. If you get a chance afterwards or in the next week or two, I encourage you to take a look in the lobby. We've got some awesome pieces that were donated to us and on loan to us regarding the history, and some artifacts out there to take a look at. And we have the Sebastian Inlet District to thank for that. And kind of segueing on that, if you take a peek out there, you'll find a golden framed, I guess you would call it a collage of original documents, the original presentation flyer, the original art rendition from the bridge when it was built, the grand opening in 1965, along with the ribbon and the scissors. And this is a permanent donation to District 4. So I know there's management out here, I won't call you out, but we are looking for a suitable place where we could permanently display that somewhere in the district. So no pressure, but enjoy that out there. A lot of this was made possible by our friend Sebastian Inlet District, the director, who is here with us today. He's a resident of the community up there and has been deeply involved with the district and has close ties going back quite a while for both the region and the bridge. So I would like to first thank him on behalf of myself, the history team, and the District 4. And if you will help me welcome James Gray.
Just a little bit about the Sebastian Inlet District. We are a small, independent, special district that was established by the Florida legislature in 1919. So we just passed our centennial, and part of that centennial celebration, we were able to, my commission was able to develop, or gave us the authority to develop the banners that you see outside, as well as coffee table book and some other little trinkets, videos and such, which came perfectly with this project. It dovetails nicely. On that note of special district, we are actually bisected by both Brevard and Indian River County. So we're a multi-purpose or multi-county special independent district specifically chartered for navigation. So this project and the involvement with the DOT team has been a great experience. from data sharing, from environmental concerns, and also for use. As we all are aware as well, the Sebastian Inlet State Park is another area that's separate entity, state park, working with DOT and the district on a number of projects, specifically this one. As I mentioned, we're chartered for safe navigation, so our main focus is the jetties. That's our major infrastructure. We have a north and south jetty, armored with rock revetments, and we also maintain the interior portions of the inlet shorelines. We do this in concert with easements that we receive from the state park and from the state. And we also do, from time to time, we do sediment bypassing, or beach nourishment is what most people refer to it as, but in this case, we're actually offsetting sediments that are impounded by the inlet and putting them onto the downdrift. In our case, the prevailing current flows north to south, so we put that onto downdrift Indian River County beaches. So just a little bit about us. I know there's a presentation of a little bit more Beth's going to give about some of the history, and I welcome, after the presentation, I don't mind going through some of the main salient points that we have on those, that nice timeline to discuss further with everyone in the room. So on that note, thank you for inviting me and working with the district on behalf of my commission. Thank you again.
I do encourage you to take some time to look at that. Like I said, it is on loan, so once it goes, you're going to have to drive if you want to see it again. With that, I'm going to pass this off to Banad and let him introduce our speaker for the day and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you so much, coaches. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sebastian, and I'm a project manager in design office, and I'm the project manager for the PD&E study and the design of this Sebastian Inlet Bridge project. So I want to thank District 4 Historic team for reaching out to us, to the project team, for this presentation. So I asked Beth Beam, who is the project manager for the PD&E study, to prepare this for us. So we are gonna go into that in a little bit. But first, I want to acknowledge here our Director of Transportation Development, Steve Braun, is here, and also Director of Transportation Operations, Paul Lampley. Thank you so much for coming. And now we have our project team, our design project manager, Ian Biava from Transsystems, is here. So I want to thank everyone for coming here. And one way or other, I think we are involved with this project. So knowing all the history of this project will give us a perspective of what we are doing. And for those who are not involved in this project, and it's really good to know what DOT does every day, all the important things that we do out there. So for that, really thank you for coming. So I want to request Steve Braun to kind of have some opening remarks for us.
Not much left on the opening remarks. These guys stole my thunder. I just wanted to, extend our appreciation for you joining us, for the project team. I think, the group that came here, the history team. Mr. Ray, I'd mentioned some of your history, right? Grew up in New Jersey, and then I can see why you moved down here. This doesn't look like the parts of New Jersey that I'm familiar with. But we appreciate the opportunity, right? We often talk about within DOT, right, working with stakeholders, and you named, besides the district, state parks, community, the traveling public, all of the above. So I think for us, really, to have an opportunity through the history team to learn the history of the area and the inlet, I think allows us really to understand those community stakeholder groups, work closely with you, right? So I think there's a great opportunity really just to learn more about it. So ultimately, right, the new bridge and whatever we deliver out there really is community centric and focused. And I think any information, I've always taken an interest on kind of the history of some of our projects. So I commend again the history team for taking that initiative on several of these projects and to bring you down here. I did mention, right, so I was in the lobby the other day and I looked at the the displays out there. They were pretty interesting. And then I looked on the other side of the room and there were another 6 of them. So there's a lot of great material out there. I think a dozen panels. So those are excellent. I think a great resource for us. So thank you for coming down to share. And thanks again to the project team as well for being here.
Thank you so much, Steve. Well, I mean, right now we are in PD&E and design phase of this project. So, it's under transportation development right now. But obviously, once we let this project and in early 2026, it's going to be in construction and it will be a part of our transportation operation. So I would like to request Paul and you to, just say a few words, if you would.
I'm not going to slow it down. I want to see the presentation, but thank you so much for coming and presenting us. And we really look forward to partnering on this project here, not only with you, but also with parks and the community. So thanks, Vinod.
Thank you so much. So, like I said, I mean, we are in the PD&E study and design phase right now, right? So our PD&E study, we did our public hearing in December. So we're at the end phase of the PD&E where we are doing all the documents and finalizing all the documents. So, Ian and his team is working on the design. We are in the BDR phase, so basically working with the bridge design and initial phase. And then we also have a right-of-way phase coming. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow here in this room for right-of-way input meeting. So this project is going along really quickly. We have really all the deadlines. So in this presentation, what we are going to share is the history of the Sebastian Inlet in itself, how it was created, and how all the works that Sebastian Inlet District and other are doing there to keep it the way it is today. And we'll also talk about the bridge itself, how historic it is, and it is actually eligible for National Register of Historic Places, right? And then we will talk about the PD&E process and why this bridge must be replaced. There was an inspection done, and we will talk about that. And also all the alternative analysis that was done, the recommendation, and the preferred alternative that we have chosen for this. And then we have also some renderings to show you how the bridge is going to look like. That's from the PD&E perspective. There will be a little bit of change due to the design. So, you can look at that and feel that okay, most of the things that we see will look similar, but there may be some changes. And there are some good pictures, old historic pictures that we're going to share on this presentation. Is it time to? So for this presentation, we requested Beth Kim, who is the PD&E consultant manager for our project. So a little bit of information on Beth. Beth is a senior transportation planner with Stantec, and she has 38 years of experience. And she has done a number of PD&E studies in different districts. And here, I mean, the PD&E study of the bridge, and then also I-95 Gateway and Boynton Beach interchange PD&E study. So with that, Beth, I'll hand it over to you, and let's start the presentation.
Good. Thanks, Vinod. So, I guess good afternoon, and we all know we're here now for the District 4 Historic Team presentation on the Sebastian Inlet Bridge replacement PD&E study. And Vinod, he covered the agenda items, so this slide just shows the agenda for today's presentation. And I know some of the information James kind of touched on and Vinod touched on, but I'll run through it anyway as part of the presentation. I'm sure some of the information you already know, but as Vinod said, we're kind of trying to cover the spectrum of the process of the project to get to where we are today. So the Sebastian Inlet Bridge, which is also known as the James H. Pruitt Memorial Bridge, is located at this Indian River and Brevard County boundary along State Road A1A. And I just want to note that part of the project is in District 4, who maintains and will be reconstructing the bridge. And it's also in District 5 as well. So we've been coordinating with District 5 on this project also. So the bridge crosses the inlet. It's surrounded by the Sebastian Inlet State Park to the east, or right in the map is the Atlantic Ocean. To the west or left is the Indian River Lagoon. Within the project limits, State Road A is a 2-lane facility, and it has a shared use path that is located on the west side of the bridge, north of the bridge on the west side of State Road A1A. It's shown by the green line on this location map. And then south of the bridge on the west side, it's a sidewalk showed by the green dash line. The blue line in between those two lines is the gap in bicycle and pedestrian facilities across the bridge, which do not exist at this time. And then if you just look to the left to this small map, it shows the RRR project that is also going to be forthcoming along State Road A1A, which goes from the south end of this project limit down to Sand Dollar Lane, which is near the Wabasso Bridge in Indian River County. So just to highlight some of the key features that surround the project, we have the bridge and the Sebastian Inlet, and then we have the Sebastian Inlet State Park, which surrounds it on both the north and south sides. We have the Sebastian Inlet State Park Swimming Cove on the northwest quadrant, and then we have an inlet grill and gifts facility and restrooms on the northeast quadrant. As James mentioned, there's the north and south jetties, the South Sebastian Fishing Museum, the Sebastian Inlet State Park and Campground, the recreation area at Coconut Point, and then we also have a channel that goes from the Sebastian Inlet to the Intracoastal Waterway, which is a feature that was coordinated with the Army Corps of Engineers and dredged by the Sebastian Inlet District. So it maintains that connection between those two features. The Intracoastal Waterway is approximately 2 miles to the west of the Sebastian Inlet Bridge. So the first settlers began to arrive in the Sebastian River area in the mid-1800s. And by all accounts, there were numerous attempts to cut an inlet in the barrier island located here between the Indian River Lagoon and the Atlantic Ocean. And shown on this slide, which is a 1880s geodetic survey, it shows this area in the orange box as Gibson's Cut. And D.P. Gibson was one of the first to attempt to create an inlet at this location. And it is the general location of the Sebastian Inlet today. So at least 6 other substantiated attempts were made by 1905 to make a cut in the inlet. And all were closed by either sand, storm, or other natural causes, and as soon as they were opened. In 1905, Roy Couch, who is a figure whose name is synonymous with the Sebastian Inlet, arrived in Brevard County, and his arrival coincided with the 6th recorded attempt to open the inlet. Although it was successful, as it was reported in the Fort Pierce Tribune at that time, it wasn't long before the inlet was again filled with sand. And as James mentioned, the Sebastian Inlet District was then created in 1919 as a special taxing district to maintain navigation through the inlet. The inlet was then again reopened in 1923. So in 1941, there was a northeaster that came through the area and again closed the inlet. And because of World War II and for safety reasons, it was determined that the inlet should remain closed. So later during the war, the inlet was turned over to the U.S. Navy as an amphibious training ground for their demolition squads. And you can see in these photographs the U.S. Navy training there, as well as the inlet and all the sand that was deposited in the shoaling area there. So in 1944, you can see where the upper right photograph where the tower is. That's actually the center of the inlet, and it was enclosed with a 14-foot high sand dune. And then in 1948, U.S. Navy surplus demolitions were used to, again, open the inlet, and it has remained open ever since. And you can see there's an Army Corps of Engineers War Department bathymetric survey of the inlet, just to show some of the interesting graphic surveys that they did at that time. I just want to comment too that all of these photographs and maps were courtesy of the Sebastian Inlet District. And then this shows in the 1950s was when the construction of the north and south jetties took place. And then moving on to State Road A1A itself. So State Road A1A on Brevard County side of the inlet was constructed between 1951 and 1956 by the Florida State Road Department. And then in Indian River County, the Florida State Road Department constructed the remaining portion of State Road A1A in 1961 prior to the completion of the Sebastian Inlet Bridge. So I know there's a lot of words, text on this slide, and I don't want you to read through it. I just wanted to highlight this is an excerpt from the easement agreement between the Sebastian Inlet District and the Florida Department of Transportation for the easement that allows the bridge to be located where it is located. And just to highlight some of the key features of this easement agreement, the purpose of it was for constructing the bridge and all appurtenant facilities. And those facilities consisted of the bridge fenders, the pedestrian walkways that are located under the bridge on the north and south sides, and then access roads to land and easements of the Sebastian Inlet District. The bridge, when it was completed, they specifically state that it will become part of State Road A1A for use by the general public, and that the Sebastian Inlet District shall never be obligated to pay for construction, replacement, repair, maintenance, or upkeep of the bridge. So this 1963 survey shows the right-of-way. Shaded in yellow is the area that was granted by the Sebastian Inlet District. The width of that easement is 240 feet wide. And then State Road A1A in general is 100 feet wide, north and south of that easement. So the Sebastian Inlet Bridge was completed in 1964, and it was dedicated in February of 1965. These photographs show on the left that you can see the bridge piers on the north side of the inlet, and then more construction of the bridge on the south side in the partially completed structure. So in 1971, the state of Florida began to acquire land around the inlet and establish the Sebastian Inlet State Park. Shown on the right is the state park area around the bridge location, and the park has now grown to 971 acres. So as shown here, this is the DOT transportation project delivery process. A planning feasibility study was completed prior to the PD&E study starting, which began in November of 2020. And the PD&E study is FDOT's process to evaluate the social, cultural, natural, and physical resource impacts associated with a planned transportation improvement project. The process is followed by FDOT to evaluate engineering alternatives and those environmental impacts, and to comply with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, federal and state regulations, and to meet requirements when federal funding is involved. And I also want to note that in 2016, the state of Florida, the Department of Transportation, obtained NEPA assignment from the Federal Highway Administration. So essentially that grants all approving authority to the Office of Environmental Management for NEPA related decisions. For this project, as Beno mentioned, there's an overlap between the PD&E study and design. The design phase began in June of 2022. And then at the end of the PD&E study, it'll continue in design, followed by right-of-way acquisition, and then construction scheduled to take place from 2026 through fall of 2028. So as part of the PD&E study process, it begins with data collection. The transportation issues and concerns are studied, and solutions and alternatives are developed. During the PD&E study, all environmental and engineering analyses are performed and documented regarding the proposed transportation improvement. And the engineering analyses include the development of alternatives that meet the purpose and need for the project, and the environmental analysis determined what potential impacts the project might have on the environmental resources. These analyses all support the decision regarding the identification of a preferred alternative that moves forward into design. And public involvement is a big component of the PD&E process, and it's been ongoing throughout the PD&E study and will continue through design as well as construction. So the purpose of this project is to address the bridge structural deficiencies and functional deficiencies, as well as address the gap in bicycle and pedestrian facilities and evaluate alternatives. The need for the project is based on the November 2018 FDOT bridge inspection report that indicated a structural deficiency rating for the bridge and a bridge health index of 79.8. The bridge is also functionally deficient or outdated in that it has minimal shoulders and no bicycle and pedestrian facilities. The project does support the Indian River County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan for State Road A1A. And just interesting to note that as part of the feasibility study, the DOT did a bicycle and pedestrian data count at the bridge over a 4-day period. 231 bicyclists crossed the bridge and 5 pedestrians. And just to note, there's no bike ped facilities across the bridge. So the bicyclists actually share the road with vehicles, and some people attempt to walk across that little 2-foot shoulder, or even this past weekend, I saw someone carrying a bike walking on the little 2-foot raised curb, I guess you could call it, that's on the bridge. So it's a much needed improvement for this project. So the existing bridge has a vertical clearance of 39 feet and a horizontal clearance of 150 feet. And the bridge roadway deck is 34 feet 3 inches. As shown in the photograph here, you can see the observation and fishing piers, one of which is located both on the north and south. And we talked about A1A being a 2-lane facility with the 2-foot wide shoulders and no bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So the bridge has also been retrofitted or repaired in 1978 and 2003. And State Road A1A also is part of the Indian River Lagoon National Scenic Byway. So the bridge is considered an historic resource. It was originally designed as a post-tension structure. It was constructed as a pre-tension bridge, and it also features lightweight concrete. It has 19 spans, and the main span is 180 feet long, and the 3-span main unit has variable depth eye girders. And this is just some snippets from the original bridge plans that are shown here on these slides. So during construction, the contractor made use of a special provision that was available to him or to the company that permitted changing the pre-stressing of the variable depth members from the post-tension original design to pre-tension. And because of the type of bridge that was originally designed and then constructed, the bridge is a National Register of Historic Places resource under Criterion C, which is engineering, for its high integrity embodiment of a pre-stressed concrete bridge in Florida. So as far as the bridge condition, the Federal Highway Administration uses 3 ratings to determine bridge condition. The sufficiency rating is a method of evaluating factors which indicate a bridge's sufficiency to remain in service. Many factors are included in the rating, and it helps determine which bridges may need repair or replacement, not if they're structurally sound. The Bridge Health Index is a tool that they use that measures 10 to 12 different elements that are evaluated. And a lower health index means that more work will be required to bring the bridge to an ideal condition. A health index below 85 generally means that the bridge is in need of some repair or replacement. And then the National Bridge Inventory gives ratings to any bridge on a scale from 1 to 9. When any component is in poor condition or rated as a 4, the bridge is considered structurally deficient. So the November 2018 FDOT Bridge Inspection Report indicated a bridge sufficiency rating of 51.6. The sufficiency rating is that method that FHWA uses. It helps to determine which bridges may need repair or replacement, not if they're structurally sound. The Bridge Health Index is a tool that they use that measures 10 to 12 different elements that are evaluated. And a lower health index means that more work will be required to bring the bridge to an ideal condition. A health index below 85 generally means that the bridge is in need of some repair or replacement. And then the National Bridge Inventory gives ratings to any bridge on a scale from 1 to 9. When any component is in poor condition or rated as a 4, the bridge is considered structurally deficient. So the November 2018 FDOT Bridge Inspection Report indicated a bridge sufficiency rating of 51.6. The sufficiency rating is that method that FHWA uses. It helps to serve as a prioritization tool for bridges for funding. The sufficiency rating looks at 4 separate factors to indicate the health of the bridge: structural adequacy and safety, serviceability and functional obsolescence, essentiality for public use, and special reductions. And I just want to comment on the essentiality for public use for this particular location, because State Road A1A is the only north-south roadway in this location. And you'll see later that the detour is significant. The essentiality for public use here is high. So a sufficiency rating less than 50 indicates the bridge is eligible for Federal Highway Bridge Program funding as a replacement. It does not mean the bridge is unsafe. The same bridge inspection report indicated a health index of 79.8. And that lower health index just means that there's more work that would be required to improve the bridge to an ideal condition. And it may be more economical to replace than repair. And then the structural deficiencies that were identified in the same bridge inspection report are based on the National Bridge Inventory Rating, which represents the primary structural components of the bridge necessary to determine the overall safety of the structure. And those elements are the bridge deck, superstructure, substructure, and culvert condition if the culverts are present. A rating greater than or equal to 7, the bridge is in good condition, 5 or 6 is fair, and less than or equal to 4 is poor condition, which then gives the bridge that structurally deficient rating. The term functionally deficient just means that the bridge does not meet current roadway design standards, and that's such as lane width, shoulder width, bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So FDOT's work program also requires that structurally deficient bridges, once identified, have corrective actions, which could be either repair or replacement, initiated within 6 years of that identification. So I'm going ahead. So both the structurally deficient rating, the low health index, and the low sufficiency rating do not mean the bridge is unsafe, just all 3 of those. And these photographs were taken from the bridge inspection report, just to kind of give you an idea. This is below the water surface. The bridge has been identified as scour critical, and you can see here there's exposed pile jackets, spalling, and corrosion and pitting. There's also delamination and spalling that's occurring on the bridge deck, as well as the piers and showing the exposed steel that's present. Additional exposed steel, there's painted areas, that's a recurring thing that they, some of the structure, the concrete just drops out, and so they repair that. And there's also column spalling and delamination and bridge cap delamination. This is just some additional photographs of the corrosion exposed strands that are shown, as well as the cantilevered section, and then on the beams and the girders as well. And this is just a picture of the underbridge observation pier showing corrosion on the bridge or the pier deck, as well as the railing. So due to the location of the bridge, which we've noted being surrounded by the Sebastian Inlet State Park, there's been numerous agency coordination throughout the PD&E project for this, with federal, state, local stakeholders, as well as the general public for navigation as well, because it's a heavily used inlet for navigation and fishing. The U.S. Coast Guard is a cooperating agency, which means that they also partake in review of our NEPA document, and the Army Corps of Engineers is a participating agency. And you can just see all the different agencies. We've been involved with all of them throughout the PD&E process. This just shows the timeline of the U.S. Coast Guard coordination. The U.S. Coast Guard is the agency that determines the vertical clearance and horizontal clearances for bridges. In general, along the intracoastal waterway, the clearance, the minimum clearance is 65 feet, and the horizontal clearance is 125 feet. And I just want to remind you that the Sebastian Inlet is not located on the Intracoastal Waterway, but it's located 2 miles to the east of it. So during the feasibility study, there was a navigation study completed. It was more of a visual inspection of the types of vessels that were using the inlet and counting of that. And then in April of 2021, as part of the PD&E study, we completed a navigation survey, which was in accordance with the U.S. Coast Guard's Navigation Impact Study Scope. And the survey was more user-driven. We wanted to know what types of vessels are using the inlet, what the size of them are, how frequently people use it, and for the purposes that they use it. So we prepared a navigation needs memorandum. It was submitted to the U.S. Coast Guard in May of 2021, and they came back with a preliminary vertical clearance of 65 feet and 125 feet for the horizontal clearance. But they also kind of touched on the opportunity for us to evaluate this from a more technical perspective, instead of just saying, oh, it's a bridge crossing a water body, it's going to be this clearance vertically and horizontally. So we went on to prepare a vertical clearance evaluation memorandum, and that was submitted to the Coast Guard in August of 2021. So we looked at more technical features of the inlet. We looked at physical characteristics of the inlet. The current that flows through there is very strong. It's a skewed angle, and it's somewhat treacherous to traverse. You have to be an experienced boater to go through the inlet. And we also looked at the inlet bathymetry, or the topography along the bottom of the inlet. The characteristics of the surrounding resources, the Sebastian Inlet State Park, it's a Section 4F resource. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but there's environmental impacts that had to be considered. The inlet and the adjacent waters maintenance, the intracoastal waterway connectivity, and then impacts to the north and south Sebastian Inlet State Park entrances. So following that, the U.S. Coast Guard came back with a revised preliminary clearance determination of 51 feet vertical clearance and 125 feet horizontal clearance. And this rendering shows a comparison of the existing bridge clearance at 39 feet and then the proposed bridge clearance at 51 feet. And I just want to note that the existing horizontal clearance is 150 feet, and it's planned to maintain that 150 feet horizontal clearance through the inlet. We didn't feel that there was any need to reduce that width because it takes some skill to navigate through there. So the wider the inlet, the safer it is for navigating. This view is looking northeast from the southwest side of the inlet within the Sebastian Inlet State Park. So for each build alternative, we looked at roadway and bridge design criteria. The design requirements included such items as the bridge horizontal and vertical clearances, bridge and roadway alignment, bridge and roadway bicycle and pedestrian facilities, maintenance of traffic during construction, safety, stormwater management, coastal influences, geotechnical characteristics, and utilities as examples. The same is for the environmental analysis for each build alternative. It was evaluated against being able to avoid or minimize impacts to these resources as we develop the alternatives. And it included criteria such as mobility, economy, community and recreational resources, historic and archaeological sites, wetlands, water quality and resources, wildlife and habitat, traffic noise, air quality and contamination. So early in the prior to alternatives development, we looked at the project constraints and controlling criteria, which for this project, they were somewhat unique. So south of the bridge, we have the existing right-of-way, which is varied throughout this portion of the project area. And then we have the Sebastian Inlet. We have the Sebastian Inlet District, fee-owned submerged lands. We have the South Jetty access. We have the Sebastian Inlet State Park dunes These are high quality resources which really cannot be impacted at all. And the potential for beach mice habitat in this particular location. And then we have the Sebastian Inlet State Park South entrance. And then we have the wetland areas and mangroves, which are abundant throughout the project area, especially on the west side. So we did the same for north of the bridge. We have the Sebastian Inlet State Park North entrance, the existing right-of-way. We have the Sebastian Inlet State Park Swimming Cove. Again, the Sebastian Inlet District land and access to the North Jetty. We also have on the east side facilities for the park includes restrooms, restaurant, beach access, and utilities. And then we have the Sebastian Inlet District Access Road. And that access road is what James had referred to when they do beach renourishment, or they stockpile sand in the northwest quadrant a little bit to the west of where you see the swimming cove. And they take that sand and they truck it down to the south side. So they use that access road to get onto 81A and haul it down to the south side. So drainage solutions for older bridge replacement projects can be a significant challenge. Also note that the Indian River is an outstanding Florida water, and that includes all the waters that are commingled in with the mangroves adjacent to the Sebastian, or within the Sebastian Inlet State Park, adjacent to the project on the west. So this project, the bridge discharges via scuppers to the inlet that's shown in the green shaded area on this map. And the bridge approaches runoff is collected via inlets, both on the east and west side of the road that discharge to the west. And then the roadway portion discharges via sheet flow to low roadside ditches. So maintenance of traffic was another strong consideration for this project, because it is then one roadway location along the barrier islands here between Indian River and Brevard County. So for both the public kickoff meeting and the alternatives public workshop, the public expressed an overall common concern about maintenance of traffic during construction and potential bridge closure. Because this bridge is critically needed route, we had to look at the detour lengths. And as you can see in the graphic shown here, if you're on the north side of the bridge and you want to go over to the campground on the south side, it would take you 55 miles to drive to get there. So that was not a viable alternative for us. So as we went into alternatives development, this was a key factor in the development. Again, we talked about Section 4F, recreational resources, and because the preferred alternative impacts the Sebastian Inlet State Park, which is a Section 4F resource, the team completed evaluation of the impacts in accordance with the U.S. Department of Transportation Act of 1966, which established the requirement for consideration of park and recreational lands, wildlife and waterfowl refuges, and historic sites in transportation project development. So that DOT Office of Environmental Management, which now has NEPA assignment, has also been delegated the ultimate responsibility for making all decisions related to Section 4F compliance. And as we mentioned, the bridge is an historic eligible resource. So we have to follow Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, which requires federal agencies to consider the effects of projects they carry out, approve, or fund on historic properties. So the historic resource impacts were evaluated for the no-build alternative and the rehabilitation, as well as the build alternatives. The no-build alternative results in no adverse effect, and the rehabilitation alternative resulted in an adverse effect. So per Section 106, we further evaluated these alternatives and determined that they failed the Section 4F feasible improvement standard. So they were dismissed from further consideration early on. For each of the build alternatives, the condition that caused the bridge to be determined structurally and functionally deficient would be corrected, but each build alternative resulted in an adverse effect to the historic bridge. So because of that, we again applied the Section 106 criteria. We completed an effects evaluation, consulted with affected parties, and completed Section 4F documentation. So in March of 2022, the State Historic Preservation Office concurred that the project was an adverse effect, and we have continued to consult with them. We're in the process of developing a memorandum of agreement to mitigate the adverse effects. And then when that is signed off, the process will be completed. So again, the alternatives considered were the no build, the rehab, and then the bridge replacement, which looked at alignments that were along the center and to the east and to the west of the existing bridge. And the alternatives were developed to meet roadway and bridge design criteria with the goal of minimizing those environmental impacts. And they were developed through, with input obtained throughout the study process from both the general public as well as federal, state, and local agencies. The no build alternative, no improvements are made. It really serves as a baseline for comparison of the other alternatives. The rehabilitation alternative, which was also considered, was dismissed, and then the build alternatives. So following the alternatives public workshop, a value engineering study was also conducted, and the alternatives were refined, and a preferred alternative was identified, which we'll see in a little bit. So the rehabilitation alternative, whether you rehabilitate it to its existing condition or make modifications to it, it doesn't bring it up to standards, and it is an adverse effect to the bridge, and it still remains structurally and functionally deficient. So just for some of the key parts, it doesn't meet current FDOT design standards, and it doesn't meet bicycle and pedestrian facilities. It doesn't provide for a 75-year service life, and it would maintain the existing horizontal and vertical clearances, and we'd have to maintain traffic during construction, which would be a challenge. This is a comparison of the existing and the proposed bridge typical sections. So the proposed typical section includes two 12-foot travel lanes, two 8-foot shoulders, and two barrier separated 12-foot shared use paths, one on the east and west side of the bridge. So the viable build alternatives that we looked at were along the center with a shift to the east. And we generally tried to hold like the western limit of the bridge for the eastern shift. And then as we went to the west, we tried to hold the eastern limit of the existing bridge as the shift. This was early on in the project. And then we moved on to further developing the alternatives. So this was alternative 1. And it shows the bridge along the existing location of the current bridge. But this alternative would require that a temporary structure be constructed in order to maintain traffic across the bridge and to avoid that lengthy detour. All improvements for the bridge improvements are located within DOT right-of-way. For alternative 2, this was a shift to the east. And you can see all of the improvements are located within FDOT right-of-way. And the blue shaded area that you see is the location of the existing structure. And then alternative 3 was the shift to the west. And again, all improvements are located within FDOT right-of-way. The blue shaded area is the existing structure shown on the east. So this was our evaluation matrix. So the anticipated effects and impacts that were either qualitative or quantitative were compared one to the other for each of the alternatives. And the results of the engineering and environmental analyses were documented in reports or technical memos that support the decision-making and the ranking of this information. For this project, the NEPA document is a type 2 categorical exclusion, and a preliminary engineering report was also prepared for the document. And the evaluation matrix results both for the alternatives public workshop and the public hearing showed that alternative 2 was the preferred alternative for this project. So a value engineering study was then conducted by the department in May of 2022. And from this week-long study, 6 value engineering recommendations were made, of which 3 were accepted, and 11 additional design recommendations were made, of which 3 were accepted. Most important or significant from the recommendations was a shift farther east in the alignment as it crosses the inlet. The recommendation was made to shift the proposed foundations as far away as possible from the existing foundations in order to avoid impacts to the existing bridge during construction. So this shift was made without increasing any environmental impacts, and the realigned alternative was presented at the public hearing in December of 2022. So moving into the preferred alternative, you can see the shift is a little bit farther to the east of the bridge. And again, all of the bridge improvements are located within existing FDOT right-of-way. To the south, the improvements include reconfiguration of the Sebastian Inlet State Park entrance road, a right turn lane out, and an added acceleration lane southbound. On the south side of the park is the campground and a boat ramp. So there's a lot of vehicles, trucks that are towing campers or trailering boats. So this provides some additional safety, although traffic didn't necessarily warrant it from a safety perspective. It gave them time to make the turn out of the park and get some speed up to get into the travel lane. And then we also lengthened the right turn lane into the park entrance in order to avoid some spillback onto State Road A1A. We added the shared use path, continued that, and tied it into the existing sidewalk. And then we have the shared use path on the bridge at 12 feet. We have a proposed crosswalk and the park entrance. And then what you don't see here is that we actually extended this shared use path on the east side down farther south. There's a day use area, parking area for the park. And that reduces to 8 feet wide, but it just provides some pedestrian safety for people who want to get to the bridge or get to the park. And then this yellow shaded area you can see is the recommended pond location. So for stormwater management, that is what becomes part of our Section 4F impacts, as well as some minor right-of-way that is required for clear zone and maintenance along State Road A1A. And then on the north side, again, we have the existing right-of-way. We have the north park entrance reconfiguration. Again, we add a right turn lane out. We lengthen the right turn lane into the park. This is the main entrance to the swimming cove, to the restaurant, where a lot of people who necessarily aren't camping or going to the boat launch into this area, as well as access to the north jetty. And then again, we connect the shared use path on the west side of the bridge, as well as on the east side, and provide a crosswalk at the park entrance. And then we also relocated the Sebastian Inlet District access road to the east side This was also determined during part of the VE study, and it really helped reduce impacts. Almost an acre of mangrove and wetland impacts were eliminated by the shift to the east side. And then again, we have the recommended pond location on the north side, again, part of the Section 4F impacts. So this was in order to maintain traffic across the bridge and avoid that lengthy detour. This is what the proposed bridge construction phasing looks like. So we have the existing bridge that will remain in service while the east half of the new bridge is constructed. Once that is completed, traffic will shift to the east half of the new bridge, and then the west half of the bridge will be constructed, and then we'll have phase three where the bridge is open. So this is a rendering of what the preferred alternative looks like looking north from the South Park entrance. So we have the reconfigured park entrance. We have the proposed crosswalks, the lengthened right turn lane into the park, the 12-foot shared use path on the east and west sides, and then looking south from the North Park entrance, we have the reconfigured park entrance, the proposed crosswalks, the lengthened right turn lane into the park, the 12-foot shared use path on the east and west sides, the relocated Sebastian Inlet District access road. And then this is a rendering of what the bridge would look like based on the preferred alternative that's been developed in the PD&E study. So you can see the 8-foot shoulders and the barrier separated shared use path, the two 12-foot travel lanes as well. There are bridge lookouts that are proposed, 3 on each side of the bridge, more for accommodating people to take in the views. Currently, they walk up to the top of the bridge and stand in the lane or in that little shoulder area or on the curb. So this provides some safety for that and enjoyment, as well as if people are walking up over the bridge and need to take a break, they can move out of the shared use path and take a break from hiking up over the bridge. And then we have the observation piers that are under the bridge that will also be replaced, as well as the bridge vendors that will be replaced. And I want to thank you for allowing the opportunity to present to you on this project. It's been a really challenging project, but very enjoyable to work on.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we have Q&A, question and discussion. So if anyone has any question or if you want to say anything about this project.
I didn't see any lights on the last, for the final, is it gonna have any light, any lamps or anything like that?
That's a great question. So this area is located in a sea turtle nesting area. So there will be some lighting proposed along the shared use paths. That's Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission approved lighting. But there will not be a significant amount of lighting along the project area for that reason.
Did they look as far as where you've got the pedestrian crosswalks across A1A of doing a tunnel or a raised pedestrian thing up and over?
I mean, early on, we did talk about like a pedestrian tower or some other facility. So in coordination with the state park, because people pay to enter the park, a small fee that goes to helping maintain the park facilities. They just didn't want like limited open access to the park. So we did not look at any kind of bridge over State Road A1A. There'll be some additional coordination required on how those crosswalks get signalized or have some, method of alerting drivers that there are people that are crossing over State Road A1A. Right now, people just randomly cross over. So, the intent is that to direct people to those crosswalks, they'll make it a safer crossing from one side of the bridge to the other.
Yeah, and to add to that, the other factor was the right of way, because we don't have enough right of way, and for the undergrounding or the bridge, you would need additional area for foundation and all that. So that was another, being that it's a section 4F impact, that was the other part of that, why we didn't have to look at. Okay, so coaches, do you know who is monitoring the chat from our site?
Is upstairs on.
Okay, so I see that we have some something blinking over there. So can we check to see if there are any questions there?
Yeah, I don't know. So I don't believe I can see them. So I clicked on all entire audience, but I don't believe I can see the chat.
Okay. So if there are any questions, we'll check those questions and we'll try to answer them later on by email or something. So again, thank you so much, Beth. I really appreciate it. And back to you, coaches.
Yeah, that concludes our presentation. I appreciate everybody coming out. If you get a chance to talk with James before he has to go today, I encourage you to do so. Again, the displays that are in the lobby are here for a limited time, so take advantage of that while they are here. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. We'll make sure they get answered and responded to appropriately. And again, thank you for coming.
Yeah, I got a question for you. Got file drive records. What's going on? Very good. Good job. Forget that file drive records. And then.
No, it's good.
Cover everything, little snippets.
Some of the photos that was calming that I hadn't seen. That was nice. Some new stuff too.
I was told so.